when you're in pain, soothing as a springtime rain, to have a friend right in your corner. Your heart will feel a little warmer. Tender loving care, tender loving care. Each warm and friendly touch lets someone know you care so much. Tender loving care, tender loving care.
Good evening, I'm Dr. Greenbrier Almond, and thank you for joining us on our program, Tender Loving Care. Each week on Channel 3, I'm happy to talk about this interface between Christianity and medicine. And tonight I'm going to review and add to a program that I did last evening on Forensics Mondays at the American Legion on teen suicide. We talked for over 2 hours. It was a workshop and turned out very well. But the information is valuable, I think, to a general audience, not just those who may be 911 responders or policemen or doctors or nurses or counselors in a professional way, but all of us have an investment in helping our youth and teens be healthy in body, healthy in mind, healthy in spirit. And so I want to talk some more about what goes wrong with teens sometimes, about this thing of suicide, which is the third leading cause of death in children. First are accidents. Second are hostile acts like murder, and third is suicide. So it's a problem. It's a problem for our teens, and so I'm going to use some information from the American Academy of Family Physicians magazine. I'm a fellow of the American Academy of Family Doctors, and though I practiced psychiatry all my career, I've enjoyed, of course, keeping up on what family doctors do and trying to be an advocate for health, as you know from our program here for the past 35 years. So they have a good article. This goes back to March the 15th, 2012, about helping the suicidal patient. So I'm going to take some information from there, and then you'll see a banner on the program from the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control out of Atlanta. And they have a wealth of online information. And so I want you to, if you're engaging in this tonight, and I hope you are, you may be a teenager, you may be a friend of someone, you think they may be having trouble, you may be a father, a mother, older brother, sister, someone like this, a concerned person in your community, and you want to know how to prevent this. That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. Let me outline for you a little bit of the things that set up children to have this type of emotional pain where they just say there's no other way except that I need to kill myself to get out of it. And that's a sad situation, isn't it? But there are known ways that children get into this dilemma. First is childhood abuse. Myself, and you've heard me say this before, but when Dr. John Warner was at West Virginia Wesleyan College, he had a class that did a community research, and I found out through Wesleyan's study that there were 1,200 children a year in Lewis and Upshur County. The Department of Health and Human Services investigated that particular year. I think this was about the year 2000. And these children, 1,200 children in the two counties, 9,000 children in the two counties, and 1,200 of them required a Child Protective Service investigation. And I thought, wow, that much abuse out there, 1 in 9 children, and yet that's a number that we hear. In a retrospective way, women, when they're adults answering a questionnaire, up to 1/4 will say they have been abused when they were children. So there's a large number of people out there, and this is one of the ways that teenagers get set up for suicide, is through childhood abuse, male and female. There can be recent traumatic events. All sorts of things happen. We are coming upon an anniversary date of 9/11, and all of us remember what we were doing on September the 11th, 2001. This is a date that we will always remember. That's a traumatic date for any of us, and yet there are a lot of other things that happen. There are house fires, there's wrecks, there's so many other things that happen to children, and many traumas, and that's an opening, again, painting the picture for you that a child could become suicidal. There's usually some type of lack of support network that makes the child vulnerable. None of us are an island. None of us can stand alone, and we do need to have each other. We need family units. We need teachers, scouts, coaches in sports. It takes a village to raise a child. I think that was something that Mrs. Clinton wrote a book about when she was First Lady, and it may have been a concept from Africa or someplace else she picked it up, but anyway, it's true, isn't it? It takes all of us as a network of support for our children. And I happen to also serve on the school board, and I'm very happy to do that. School boards can only do so much. It takes the whole community to educate our children, to keep them safe, to keep them healthy, and of course, ultimately, not doing anything like suicide. So a network is important, and sometimes there's a lack of support, and that sets children up. Availability of a gun. Still, this is the most common way that folks kill themselves, and so some like 60% of the men, 40% of the women who die down to the teenage years do this through a weapon of some kind. So keeping weapons locked up, keeping the ammunition separate from the gun, doing all those precautions that we all know what to do. And it doesn't mean that we should not have weapons in our house. We have the right to bear arms. It just means that we need to be cautious and do safety. Children can learn how to shoot, of course. There are safety classes for them to take, and those are to be encouraged. And we have a strong tradition of hunting in West Virginia, but the availability of a gun that a child could get at, especially if they were distressed, not supervised, is a dangerous thing. There could be hostile social or school environments. Every state in the Union except Wyoming now, also included is the District of Columbia, have rules, laws, procedures, policies in place to prevent bullying, to keep the schools safe. I know, without giving any detail, that last year, as a member of the school board, we had to have a hearing almost every week last year, and we'll probably be in that process now as school's underway, where there is something that happens at school that comes to the attention of the teacher, the principal, others, and it's an unsafe act. It could be a child bringing a weapon to school, could be a child having drugs at school. You can think of other things, but there's a whole policy and procedure in place. And if you go to the school board website, actually that whole policy is available, and what we need to do if there's a violation. And we have ongoing inspections of lockers with drug sniffing dogs and all those things. We're doing everything we can, but it takes all of us to keep the school safe. And we don't want to have a hostile school or social environment at all. And then finally, exposure to other teens is a common way that the kids get set up. In other words, they could be close to the edge, and then someone they know or someone within the school system, maybe the adjoining county, suicides. And suicide is a taboo. It's a Filipino word. I like that word. I mean, it says a lot to me. But anyway, there are certain things, there are certain lines that we do not cross. The President of the United States will be talking tonight to the nation, and he said there's a red line that Syria could not cross with weapons, using poison gas and poisoning his own people in Syria. And so that was a line that the world does not want to cross. But anyway, a taboo is when that line is crossed and then there are consequences. So if there is a suicide, it leads people then to thinking, well, why not me? I could do it too. And people start thinking about it and dwelling on it, get ideas and thoughts and make plans and have intentions based on what they see happening to someone else. So it's good. It's good to have strong rules. I remember growing up, my mother and father saying, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. That's a different way. It has nothing to do with suicide per se, but it does mean that we have to sort out what we believe in, and we have to stand on the ground of certain things that we do believe in, and that includes the value of life, and whether it's self-murder or murder or whatever else we might do to harm ourselves or someone else, that's a taboo, and that should be taught. Well, the rest of the story, let's go down to some warning signs. So say a child, without anyone really knowing, the teacher may not know, the other family members may not know exactly what's going on, but there are signs. They can see certain things that begin to happen, and these are warning signs. And so if you are listening to this program and you start to see this in someone you love and you care for, it's appropriate to investigate a little bit and find out what it means. Changes in eating and sleeping habits. Now I know that kids don't always eat well, they don't always sleep well, but we do need to be careful that we have good nutrition, that children are eating, that they are getting plenty of rest, and a change of that, especially if a child cannot sleep. I've seen people really get sick in just 9 days without sleep, and so it's one of those things. We have to breathe, of course, every few minutes, and we can't go probably more than 5 minutes without breathing, but we can hardly go 9 days without sleep. And so these are things that set us up to get really sick fast. Changes eatings, of course, it's necessary that we eat. Withdrawal from friends, family, or regular activities. If a child has been active in scouts or sports or other events and they don't want to do that anymore, they want to withdraw, then that's a warning. And that does not mean that the person is going to go all the way down that path and commit suicide, but it's a warning, and it needs to be investigated. Why is that happening, that the child is no longer engaging in activities that they used to love to do? Of course, children are into music, they're into dance, they're into activities with their friends. If they're withdrawing from that, that's a warning. If there's violent or rebellious behavior, running away type behavior, then that's a warning. Children, of course, sometimes will feel they have to defend themselves, but sometimes children really get rebellious. They want to break all the rules, and sometimes they want to run away. And there's a saying that we're not running away to something, we're running from something. So there could be something harmful happening in the home or in the school environment that keeps a child from not wanting to go to school, want them running away, things like that. We have very strict rules about truancy. We cannot go many days without the school board, the principal, the teacher, everyone being interested in why a child's not attending school. So if they were withdrawing that way, then the parents will be alerted. Everyone will be looking at that, and they should. And that's because it's a sign that something's wrong. There's drug and alcohol use. This is, one need not say this. We can't close our eyes. We can't put our head in the sand anymore like an ostrich. Drugs and alcohol are out there. We need to be vigilant. And as I say, we have rules that there are no drugs or alcohol in school. Sometimes it gets into school, then we have to have punishment, and we have to keep the school safe. Whatever we need to do. If there are drugs or alcohol in the home, they should be, with the prescription drugs, they should be locked up. Only the person who's prescribed to take those drugs should be taking that. And there are reasons why people might be on pain medicine, reasons why they might be on a tranquilizer, things like that. If a family member drinks alcohol, they should keep track of their own supply of alcohol. Don't let it get into the kids' hands. So all these things will hurt the child, and maybe even suicide. If there's unusual neglect of personal appearance, this is also something to be concerned about. Kids will dress the way kids dress. I'm wearing a tie tonight. I'm going to go to a school board meeting in a little bit. I'm on TV. It feels comfortable for me to wear a tie. only about 22-28% of men wear ties anymore. So I'm in a minority right now. But if my dress changed drastically, you would begin to notice that. And your child will have clothes that they shopped for this year, things they wanted to wear, and so forth. Keep it clean, take good care of it, and they should be doing some of that themselves. But if there's a lot of neglect there, that's a warning sign that something else is going wrong. Persistent boredom or difficulty concentrating or decline in schoolwork is a warning. Again, the school will keep us informed and keep the parents informed of the grades, and there's always parent-teacher meetings that can be set up, and they should be. And if the quality of the schoolwork is failing, that's a warning that something's going wrong. Doesn't mean that it's going to be a suicide. This just means we have to know what's happening and deal with it early. The better to do it early. I still have this dream in my own head, and I'm not a student. I'm 65 years old. But I studied for a long time. 12 years of public school, and then 4 years of college, and 4 years of medical school, and 3 years of residency, and so I went to school for a long time, 11 years actually after high school. So I've taken a lot of tests, I've studied a lot, but I have this dream, all nightmare, that I would be going into a class and I don't know what's going on, and I'm very anxious about that, and I didn't prepare, I didn't hear the assignment, whatever it is, but that's the dream, and so I empathize and sympathize with children who miss school, don't hear the assignment, and they get behind, and it's very hard to catch up. But we do have counselors. We have one-to-one ways to catch up. We have computer learning now, many things out there to help children, and of course the parents and the teachers have to engage in that process. Sometimes there are frequent complaints about physical problems, belly aches, headaches, fatigue, all those things that are vague. Again, most people who end up suiciding go to a family doctor within 6 months. They go in, they complain about things, and doctors are being taught all the time to think about suicidal behavior as a possibility of what could be happening to their patient, that there could be something else when they're examining a child. A bellyache is not often an ulcer. It could be something else. It could be something emotional. It's okay. The doctor will ask, how are things going in your schoolwork? How's things going at home? Do you feel safe? Questions like that, and follow up, even if it's a physical complaint the child may have. And then not tolerating praise or reward. It's interesting that some people don't want to be praised. They may not feel that they're worthy. And so we all want to pat a child on the back and offer all the support we can. But if a child is refusing that type of thing, then that's a sign that something's wrong. So those are, I want to cover that, not giving the whole seminar that we gave last night at the American Legion on teen suicide and the forensics part. But there are also, and I did want to cover this, preventive ways that we can help. And I thought this was appropriate to talk about on our program, that if there is something happening, if the child is acting strange in some way, as we outlined, then it's proper to get a mental health consultation, go to a family doctor, a pediatrician, get a doctor's opinion. If there's any type of substance use going on, make sure that's addressed, because that will surely hurt the child. And this includes marijuana, and you can name all these things that are out there now. It's getting easier for a child to get help. We now have school-based clinics. I'm very happy to do that. I'm happy that I advocated for that. I'm happy that gradually more and more schools are adding that. And I've had great experience in Clay County for a number of years with school-based clinics. And this doesn't take the place of the parents. The parents have to be informed. If there's any medication prescribed, the parents have to agree to that medication and probably come to the school and actually sign a document that there's going to be a prescription. So there's nothing behind the parent's back. But if there's a school-based clinic, there are nurses, there's physician assistant, there are doctors present, then the child doesn't miss a lot of school to get help. They can go to on a class, not math, not reading, another type of class. They can go get to a clinic, be seen, and be back in class. That's the beauty of a school-based clinic, and it improves the access of care, which is one way to prevent things from getting out of hand. Of course, I mentioned restricting the lethal means of suicide. We know all the precautions, keeping things locked up, which could be knives, could be archery, could be guns. All these things need to be poisons, medicines. Of course, even things we might not think of, lighter fluid, gasoline, people sniff various compounds, and all these things have to be accounted for. They are poisons, and we need to limit, don't have them just out in the open. It's important to have strong connections for family and community support. West Virginia is very fortunate. Of all 50 states in the District of Columbia, we have the most percentage of intact families. I learned that when I was a part of the VA system, and we were setting up family therapy as part of what we were offering our veterans at Clarksburg VA. And this was for various disorders, even management of diabetes or heart disease or PTSD. We're involving the family because we have families, very strong advocates, and we want to keep it that way. So families should be involved. But if there's a family breakup, a divorce, or families are being split, we need to know that we need to come up with extra support at that time. It could be an aunt, an uncle. It's not uncommon, in my experience, for grandparents to be raising some children, especially during a crisis time. But we want to keep that support out there for the child. There are classes, ways that we can learn problem solving and how to deal with stress of life. I'm very happy that many of the children are involved in scouting programs, both Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, the 4-H program, churches. A lot of these groups are teaching conflict resolution, nonviolent solving of problems, ways to cope, ways to handle stress, and problem solve. I particularly like the Boy Scout model, working toward an Eagle Scout, 21 different merit badges. By the time a person does that, they really have a lot of information right at their fingertips on how to handle many things that will happen in life. You can be a lifesaver in a drowning situation. You could be, you already know archery, you know first aid, and on and on and on. Those are things that are important for children to learn and learn how to problem solve and handle conflict. And finally, I want to mention cultural and religious beliefs. We all want to discourage suicide, and we don't want to go down that path. And it's a four-step process. Someone will get the idea. They may get the idea because of something on TV, maybe again a teen's suicide in another county, or someone they've heard about, and the idea will be there, and we all get ideas. But if we dwell on it, we begin to think about it, then that becomes pathological, doesn't it? And it can be morbid. It can take us a downward spiral. People may go on to another step then of actually planning how they would hurt themselves and or hurt someone else, or in West Virginia about 14 times a year we have a husband and wife who kill themselves and often will kill their children, and that's very tragic when that happens. So we're always looking out for these things, but that's a downward spiral from the idea to the thought to the plan, and then of course the intention and set everything up to do it. So it's a four-step process. It's if a person's getting sick, another way to say this, and I've talked about preventive medicine all the time on this program for 35 years, so you probably have heard me say this, that we get a little sick, then we get sick, and then we get very sick. I mean, this is a very concrete way to look at this, but if we get a little sick, if a child gets a little anxious, a little depressed, they're not eating for a little bit, they're not sleeping for a little bit, well, okay, rest, eat right, relax, get your routines worked out, everything will balance itself. And most of us live there. We try to catch up on the weekend and get things done, and we face Monday, and we go in there and we keep the shoulder to the wheel and the nose to the grindstone. We want to work hard, and then by the end of the week we're tired, and we take time and rest. But if we can't keep that schedule like that, then we get into trouble. So it's important to think about prevention, and even if there are proactive factors. I want to say one or two other things here, because we live in a special time. We're in the middle of a downturn. It's been described as the worst in 80 years, financial setbacks. Sometimes when children are getting abused and yelled at and struck and bad things happening, it's because there's a lot of financial stress. And we know that that's a factor out there in our society right now. I remember I'll use this as an illustration, not a current patient. Don't want to give any identities out of, I want to respect all confidentialities, but years ago when I was a resident, and this is way back, about 40 years ago, I remember having a child come in who was catatonic. And the child, catatonia means if you put the arm up here, it stays there. Put this arm up here, it stays there. Put the head up there, it stays there. So the child is frozen. It's actually a very high energy state, but the child will not move. And what had happened in this case, and it has good outcome generally. It has good outcome, but it's an odd symptom or an odd presentation for a child, but it happens. Anyway, this child presented like this, and we began to sort out what was happening in the child's life, and we learned that the parents had said to each other and then to the child, when you grow up, we're going to get a divorce. In other words, the parents had decided that it might be better for the child to stay married, even if they were in a conflicted situation. But when the child's 18 or something, they're going to get a divorce. And anyway, the child then internalizes, as a child will, and said, "Oh, it's my fault. I'm growing up. It's my fault, and my parents will get a divorce when I'm grown up. And I can't stop myself from growing up." Literally put a brick on your head, and the child still grows. I remember Mom used to say that. She said, "Oh, I've got to put a brick on your head, try to slow down my growth spurt." You see yourself growing out of pants, out of shoes, and all of us who've just done shopping know what that's all about this year. This child figured out that they're the cause of the parents getting a divorce someday, and the child froze because every time they moved, they seemed to be growing. Well, anyways, the solution for the child, anyway, was to say to the parents, bologna. The old word, we used to like to eat bologna sandwiches, and it's not a very high-class meat, but it will keep the ribs apart. So we taught the child to say bologna. It's not your fault that the parent is getting a divorce. And they start to say things like that to you. You just say baloney. You're the adults here. It's your fault. If you're going to get a divorce, get a divorce. If you're going to stay married, work out your differences, but don't put the load on me. And so just simply through counseling, helping the child come up with a system that they can use to take control of a bad situation. In this case, I think we did prevent a lot more serious pathology in that child. The child turned out very well in the future. Well, here we are, beginning of a new school year. I appreciate that I was asked to go to the American Legion and talk about forensics and about teen suicide, and I wanted to present some of that to you tonight. Stay tuned for future programs all about helping our children grow up healthy and strong. Many new things happening, and we're going to share that with you. Until the next time, this is Dr. Greenbrier Almond, thanking you for joining us on our program, Tender Loving Care. We'll see you next week.
Stories of a West Virginia Doctor, written by Dr. Harold D. Almond. a collection of 55 short stories about his experience as a small-town doctor in central West Virginia. And Tender Loving Care, Stories from a West Virginia Doctor, Volume 2, written by Dr. Greenbrier Allman, using videotapes to write 70 additional stories of his father's very colorful life as a small-town doctor. They can be found for purchase at Amazon.com and most local bookstores. Tune into Channel 3 Buckhannon for Tender Loving Care with Dr. Greenbrier Allman, where he talks about the connection between Christianity and medicine.